Hi, welcome to the video for Module 7, More Fun with Images and Media. So before we get on with the second half of the semester, yeah, that's right, second half of the semester coming right up, as will be the midterm, but that in a moment. Before we get on with the second half of the semester, I want to make sure that everyone is up to speed with optimizing images. You'll notice in the components section, we've got an assignment, a new site, just 2 pages. One will have 4 images, the other will have some other media. These images that go on that first page, the file size, pixel dimension, proportion, and optimization is a big deal, big deal. One improper file size or misproportioned image will get you a D for the project. One bad image will spoil the whole thing this time around. So you'll want to pay close attention to how to optimize and size and proportion these images. Find a friend to help you double check this before you send it in, because this is a big deal this time. We've got a few glossary terms. At the bottom there's a required discussion that'll go up for the onliners, and for the face-to-face Thursday in class we'll have some discussion time about this. And these images will be 150 pixels by 150 pixels each, and you can structure the page however you like to accommodate these 4 images. I've got a little sample going here. Resources, lots of reading in the textbook about assets that Dreamweaver has that will help you optimize these images and put this other media in here, this video of course. You can feel free to use Dreamweaver's pre-made layouts with this one. I want you to concentrate on the optimization of the images, and there are some links below that will help you. Here's some of the reading that is available in the chapter. In Chapter 5, Photoshop and Fireworks, you can do the optimization, and I'll show you how in this video. You can do the optimization straight in Dreamweaver. You don't necessarily have to have Photoshop this time around to complete the assignment 100%. But if you've got Photoshop, feel free to use it. You may want to develop a strategy, count down 60 days from the end of the semester, and you could download a 30-day trial copy of Photoshop, a 30-day trial copy of Fireworks. Here's the what to do, which we'll kind of go through in the video, but you can read more of it here. File size, we're getting these images down to about 20K or so, and I think the requirement is actually 30K or less. The drop-dead requirement here for the project is 30K or less. Here are some links. These are about Dreamweaver's image editing, which we'll also cover in the video. There's a link about image editing in Photoshop. There's one about Save for Web and Devices in Photoshop. And plenty of edits. Those of you that are already Photoshop mavens know that there are plenty of things that Photoshop can do that the rudimentary capabilities of Dreamweaver can't. So there's a little link about that. And one of the extras that you can do in the assignment for the higher grade this time is to link a YouTube video. I don't demonstrate that in the video, but it's there's a link that tells you how to do that. I think I misspoke. Insert a YouTube link into your media page. And then fave icons. These are those little icons that appear in a browser up by the address field here. There'll be an icon to the left of your URL on a lot of sites. These are links to sites that will help you create one of those. You'll prepare a little square JPEG of your logo or other image, and these links will walk you through the steps to make that into a fave icon, and they'll have a little bit of a little line of HTML code that you'll need to insert to do that. Also, page 156 in your book walks you through what Dreamweaver has for you on that. And this is a fairly straightforward operation, so it's not covered in the video either. Let's see. So a big deal here is image size. These images, the image file needs to be 150 by 150 pixels exactly, and I will show you how to accomplish this in Dreamweaver, even without access to Photoshop. The files need to be less than 30K. They can't be stretched or squished. They need to have natural proportions. They cannot be disproportionately scaled. So when you scale them, if you scale them in Photoshop or if you're scaling them in Dreamweaver, hold down that Shift key when you grab the corner. Now, let's see. So for the sea level, we've got to have all styles in an external CSS document properly linked. No styles are internal. All the images fit the criteria. And let's see, for a B, you're including some of these above sea level options. You're embedding a YouTube video, having a fave icon, putting maybe a QuickTime video in there. It's listed here, and then extra points if it looks good. Then for a B, you do 2 of those. For an A, you do all of them, plus you add a 4th technique from the chapter. The A plus is either it's a great design or something in there is a wow. All right, so on we go. That's the media page. Let's see, we've got our index page, which I'll open up here. And by the way, in this video, I've got a pre-made root folder going. It's here on the side. Here's my root folder. And it's got, it says your name 7. Please, one reminder again, all lowercase, no spaces in your folder names, in your file names. And that very first page is index, not Joe's index or index to, just index.html. Second page I just called media. Call the second page whatever you like. I have in here an images folder, which I've populated with a couple of images already, a media folder that I've populated with 2 pieces of media, a QuickTime movie and a Flash file, and I've got a CSS folder which has my CSS in there, which of course I created in Dreamweaver when I got that new page, and I chose the layout, and here where it says layout CSS, of course, create new file, and then I was able to in the dialog box make my CSS folder inside my root folder. But you've all done that, so we won't spend a ton of time reviewing it. Let's see, I've populated my index page with a little bit of content. I think in the module it says we want a name of each image and a little sentence or 2 about what you did to it. I opened this one in Photoshop and used the crop tool set on 150 pixels wide, 150 high. Then I went to Save for Web and Devices to optimize. We'll go over that as well. And that's all about this image. In my case, I made a little ID over here. You could certainly use one that has an existing column, or you could come up, I definitely encourage you, challenge you to come up with a kind of a cooler device. You could put these things in tables, which is not the cooler device I'm challenging you to, but this would be an okay use for tables. I won't count against you for that. But for that big A+, if you're going for it, I challenge you to try kind of a cool CSS solution here. In this case, I've done a little ID called photo column, which I've got a text color specified, a few text properties. Font size was 90%. But the layout I chose had a font size of 100% for most of it in the body tag. So in my photo column, I made it 90%. Captions a little bit smaller, italic. The stylistic decisions are up to you. I put a little bit of margin around this, so text would flow around it. As I positioned it, when I positioned it statically, it was kind of hanging down a little bit for whatever reason. So I gave it relative position, meaning relative to its normal static position. I wanted it minus 10 pixels at the top. In other words, scoot that thing 10 pixels up. It has a width specified. I figured I'd keep that to 150 since that's all the bigger my photos could be. Now in my case, these photos are going to stack in here, and it's going to make for kind of a long page, which doesn't really match up with my text. By the time I get to this last photo, my text will be up here, my photo will be clear down, way below the fold. I would probably want to put in an anchor to it, you know, that's kind of another device you could put in to ease navigation. But those are the parameters I've got set up here. So I've got these two images in here. These are all images that I picked up from nasa.gov, which they say are free for our use for educational purposes. If you start putting them on t-shirts and selling them, I think there's a different usage agreement you've got to sign on to. But for educational purposes, here they are. We pay for them every April. So I've placed two of them here, and I'm about to place a third. So I will go to where my images are. I've got them in an external folder here called Stuff. And these are just some extra resources. These are the original 800 by 600 or even larger photos that I pulled off the NASA site. I've also got a little text edit document with the captions on there. Captions weren't a requirement, but I feel good, you know, better about having a photo with, you know, a caption underneath that says what it is. Let's see. So I've got the moon water. I've got shadow. Oh, here's the third one, the robotic lander. So, oops, and it's opening up in preview when I just double click on it. Let's drag it down to Photoshop and open that up. There'll be a brief pause while Photoshop loads. In Photoshop, there's this crop tool. And let's see, is it opening up my lander page? Do I want to assign a profile? Yes, I want RGB, which we know what that stands for, but it is the color profile that we used on the web. Keeps our file size a little bit smaller. Okay, so here's my image, and under image size we can see that it's big. It's the file size is 1.37 megabytes, way larger than our required 30K, and width is 800 pixels, height 600, also way larger than our required 150 by 150. So within Photoshop, what we can do is I'll resample this. That means I'm going to be adjusting the file size. I'm going to be adjusting the actual number of pixels in here. I'm resampling down to a height of 150, and that would give me 87.9K. So we could click on that, but actually what I was going to demonstrate was this crop tool. This is another way to resample that image. And if you've used Photoshop much, you've probably used a crop tool in its different forms. You know, and you can resize it until you get the crop that you like. But I'll hit escape to get out of there. What you can also do is put that crop tool at 150 by 150 pixels. 150 space px for pixels. And this will constrain your crop tool, not only constrain it to a square, but in one fell swoop you can crop that, and you can kind of nudge it around with your arrow keys or mouse around and get that perfect crop on there. And when I double click, not only are these outside edges going to go away, what's in the dark gray here, not only is that going to go away, but this is going to be resampled down to 150 by 150 pixels, so I don't have to go in and change it in image size and then crop it. I can do this all at once. Click. Pow, there it is. And there's my new small 150 by 150 pixel image. There it is. 150 by 150 exactly. That part of the requirement is covered. I'm passing. I'm passing now. So there we go. 150 by 150 pixels. It's still kind of a large image, though. Let's check that image size again. What was our file size? 65.9K. This got it down smaller than just resampling it because it cropped it all at once. So there was some extra real estate on left and right that we also cropped out all at once, and yet it's proportional. It is still proportional. You can tell in this one, I mean, just by the general shape, we could imagine that this sort of thing is circular. It looks like a circular piece of equipment. The flag is still proportional. There are all kinds of little clues. The lettering here in this banner is out of focus, but it looks proportional. So these are clues for me that everything is in good shape here. To get this down to our required under 30K, I'm going to go into Save for Web and Devices. And we've been talking a lot about PNG. For images that have transparency, PNG 24 is great. For this particular case, not so great. It gives us 52.39K. And in this case, I don't have any special reason to save this out other than JPEG. GIF would not be good since it's a photo image. GIF would kind of, the transitions in here start looking a little chunky when I use GIF. JPEG is the one for this image. It's at 30 quality, which is great, and it's 12.49K, 12.5K. Perfect. I will save it, and be sure at this point to save it in your root folder, in your images folder. We can change the name in this case to Robotic 150. Feel free to use any naming convention that makes sense to you and helps you keep track of your images, helps your sanity. This naming convention helps mine. You know, a little name that tells me what the content of the photo is, and then something that tells me what the size is, because I have the larger image out in that stuff folder out there on my desktop. So Robotic 150, images only I'm saving. I don't need any HTML. And I'll save it into my images folder in the root folder. Boom. There it is. It's ready to go. Now it's going to ask me, do you want to save changes to Robotic 800, 600 JPEG? No, not really. In fact, I cropped some real estate away from there. Let's say my client looks at this next week and says, you know what, I want to see the end cap of this piece over here. It's really crucial to telling the story. If I do away with that information, I won't be able to. I'll have to say, oh golly, can you send me that photo again? So keep the originals. And now here in Dreamweaver, I'll just put a cursor where I want that image. I'll go up to Insert, like always, and insert that image. Oh, not from my stuff folder though. I want to navigate. Be sure that you're working with your root folder, and you'll be able to tell because when you click on the image, you get this nice short little URL, images/robotic150.jpg. Perfect. That's exactly the short little path that I want. That means I've managed my site correctly. I'll hit choose. It wants an alt tag, robotic lander. There we go. There's my image. Again, not necessarily a requirement, but I'll put in my text. And by virtue of specifying a different size in this ID that I made, my text will import in this color and with a little bit smaller size, italic. You know, it's however you specify on my titles. And you could have a different strategy. You could do one of the H tags perhaps. I'm just hitting bold, which puts a strong tag in my text. And there we go. There's that one. My next image we will optimize using Dreamweaver. Just straight into Dreamweaver. So I'll hit return. Here I've got my cursor below in the next slot. Again, this isn't necessarily the most elegant solution. I'm challenging you to come up with something that will look a lot nicer, but this will kind of work. I'll hit insert images and I'll navigate out to my stuff folder because that's where I've got the originals. And having this stuff folder outside my root folder, at least for the time being, does facilitate Dreamweaver asking me questions like these. Oh, before I hit choose, notice that big giant URL. If you see this, something's wrong. You need to fix that. So having the stuff folder outside my root folder gives me this big long URL, but it helps Dreamweaver ask me questions like these. Say, buddy, you told me you had this root folder that you were working with for this assignment. Here it is. Here's the root folder you told me about. would you like me to put this image there? It's not there now. Would you like me to put it in the root folder? I'll say, why, yes, thank you. And here's my big chance to rename it. It's not 150 pixels yet, but it soon will be. So I'll name this new one homecoming150.jpg. I'll put it in my images folder in my root folder. How nice of Dreamweaver to ask me about that. Okay, and it wants some alt text as well. This is a photo of the shuttle, space shuttle, coming home on a 747. So that's my alt tag. Wow! There's my big giant image, 600 by 800, and look what it did to my page. This photo column had a float right specification on there. It's still floating right, but it's got this big giant image in there. So the left edge of my float right is 600 pixels from the right edge of my container, and that kind of shoved all the rest of my content around. And it kind of trumped my instruction to put this thing up at the top because it's now bumping into other pieces. And in order to not do that, it's kind of shoving it over here to the left and underneath the sidebar one, and main content gets shoved underneath this. So in order to alleviate that, I've got this photo selected. If you don't, you can click on it and you can see it's selected by some little squares that are visible. Then up here under Modify, mouse down to Image, get Optimize. There we go. And Dreamweaver will give you this little image preview dialog box. The default is to look at options, and you've got some tools. You've got a selection tool, a crop tool, zoom tool. You can, very much like Save for Web and Devices, you can view it 2 up or 4 up. We'll just stick with the image for right now. Now over here you'll want File. For this assignment you'll want File, and there's a little percentage slider. You can come down in percentage. You'll notice the pixels change. Pixels change. This is wider than it is tall, so I want to deal with this one with the height first and get that to 150. Now I can also double click on the number of pixels and just type in 150. You know, my ultra strict teacher says it's got to be 150 by 150 period, so I can type in 150 exactly, and it will I think if you hit tab or if you mouse around to a different field, after entering 150 it will enter whatever that comes down to. In this case, a height of 150 means I'm scaling this down to 25% of its original size, and it just happens to be the width works out to 200 pixels at that point. Yours might not be quite so nice and neat, but you can type in 150 for either the height or the width, whichever is less, and you'll hopefully be able to see that in your image. And then Dreamweaver has its own crop tool, very much like Photoshop, except it's not a click and drag. You just hit crop and you get the crop already. And here in the export area, it will give me my new width. So I can kind of, with a little trial and error, get it down to 150. Now what if I get it to 150 and it's not quite where I want it? I think I can either nudge, no, the nudge keys aren't working. I can use the hand tool and kind of move that around. Now as I move over to the right, Dreamweaver will keep going smaller and smaller, but there we go. It won't go larger than 150 since that's what I had specified here. Now in using the crop tool, it's changing. I've moused around a little bit too much and it's changed my height. Be careful of that. There we go. Double click to get that image back. I want a height of 150. Tab. No, not doing it. You know, I'm going to cancel and try that again. I kind of messed up that operation a little bit. So here's my image selected. I'm going to go up to Modify, get Image, Optimize. I'll want File. We said that was, we know from working with it now that it's 25%. Couldn't quite get the slider to cooperate exactly. For exact numbers, sometimes you just have to enter them. There it is. My height is 150. I'm going to crop and get a width. Oh, it wants me to use the tool. Okay. I'll bring this width down to 150. No, we want 150 exactly. Will it let me enter it? Yes. So I've got 150 by 150. I moused around a little bit and it changed to 149. Let's change that to 150. Okay, I've got 150 by 150. It's a proportional crop. It's the space shuttle. It's a 747. You can tell if they've been misproportioned. I'll hit OK. Pow! And now right here, right now, within Dreamweaver, I get a nice 150 by 150 image. I can go into my root folder, into my images folder. Oops, don't need to double click there. And get this homecoming 150.jpg. Even in my preview, it lists 4K. Cool, way under 30K. It doesn't, oh, here's the dimensions, 150 by 150. That's a good confirmation. If you have Photoshop available to you and you want to open it up in Photoshop, you can. It should confirm that very thing. If you've got Bridge available to you, you can open this up in Bridge and confirm this size information. But this will do it for the assignment. And okay, so what I wanted to do is pop that caption in here. There it is. You know, I just cut and pasted these, or copied and pasted these from the NASA site into a little text edit document so that I'd have that as a resource for cutting and pasting. Let's see, I'll choose the image, a nudge to the right, hit return. Did that get me where I wanted to go? Maybe not. There, yes, it did. And I can paste my copy in there. Again, by virtue of being specified in this ID, it takes on those type styles. I can get my homecoming headline and hit bold. That gives me a strong tag up in the code, I believe. There we go. Yep, strong. And the rest is just a P tag because it's the type properties are covered in this ID. Now again, if I were really doing this up right, I think I'd put some anchors by these and put a link somewhere up here. But in my description, which is required for the assignment, it says, now this one I optimized right here in Dreamweaver using Modify Image Optimize. I resized it to 150 pixels high and cropped it to 150 pixels wide, then saved it into my images folder. Pretty much what we did. Great. Oh, on to the media page. From here, I just did a save as from my index page at some point, and I got a media page, inserting media. I'm going to put in a Flash file here. This is one that I borrowed from Tom, from his Flash class. Tom's Flash class, by the way, if you haven't taken it already, is a really great class. He's great with ActionScript, which is key to the current versions of Flash, and it's available either face-to-face or online. There's our shameless plug for another ACC class, but here we go. I've got a cursor here, and from my insert panel, I'm going to insert media, and I'll hit this little arrow, which, there's lots of different kinds of media we can insert. This is an SWF file, shockwave file, Flash file. I've created a folder called Media, separate from my Images folder. They're larger files. Their nature is sort of different. You may be putting them in a different place. So I did Media instead of Images, and there it is, junk.swf. I'm not sure why Tom called it junk. It's just kind of a cool, basic little file. It's a skyscraper ad that he did. And again, these alt tags that Dreamweaver always asks you for can be in plain English, plain language. Flash file. Skyscraper because it's tall. It's tall and skinny. And here we go. I'll click OK. And it shows up as a little gray box with that Flash logo on it. I'll save the page at this point. Since it's a Flash file, it's saying it uses some behavior scripts. Do you want to include those? Yes, we certainly do. And it lists the ones that are coming along with this file. I'll click OK, and by virtue of doing that, Dreamweaver has made a separate file here called scripts, and it's put those two things in here, and it's got links written to those. So now let's preview, and there's what this page looks like. It's got this funny little Flash file going in there, just a spinning shape that repeats. Pretty basic. Oops. Back to Dreamweaver, and here's a sample of a QuickTime movie. I downloaded a QuickTime movie from nasa.gov. They have all kinds of stuff there, and so we'll make use of it. This one's a little bit different. Under Insert, you hit that arrow, and there's nothing here that really says QuickTime movie per se. In your book, you'll read that this is the one you want. You want plugin. And we'll select a file, Cassini. By the way, Lockheed Martin, there's a fellow in their media group out there who is on our advisory committee. Stop by, I can show you a poster of Cassini that he gave to us at one point. Anyhow, we'll choose our QuickTime movie. And unlike the Flash file, it doesn't ask us for any scripts. This particular kind of thing doesn't need that. But what it puts in here is this teeny little thumbnail. And we've got to kind of draw this out. Now in rehearsal, I found out from trial and error, and you'll see down here in the Properties Inspector, as I draw this out, it gives me a width and height. I found out from trial and error in rehearsing for the video, what I want here is a 480 width by 380 height, and that'll give me what I need to run this movie. And let's see if it goes here. Let's see, so I'll save my page and preview. There's my Flash file, of course, and there it is. That's my movie, proportioned just like it was on the NASA site. Not streaming quite as smoothly as we might like. What is it there? Pause and so forth. So that's running like we need it to. And that's it. Here are my links to my two pages. I can link back to photos. Of course, I've got to scroll down. You, of course, will come up with a more elegant solution than this, or at the very least, give me some anchors. Hello, thank you. To navigate down to these lower images, and I encourage you some text links down on the bottom there. But that's pretty much the assignment. Fairly straightforward, but I'll be a real stickler about these static images on that index page. I will be a real stickler about that. 150 pixels by 150 pixels. Not that there's anything magic about that size, but you will have sizes specified throughout your web career that you'll need to honor. So 150 by 150 pixels, file size of under 30K, and here are my images. Let's get the line view and see the file size. Homecoming says 4K. These others have a little more finesse, I guess, in the way that we save them. They're a little bit larger, 12, 16, and 12, all perfectly fine, all under that file size. File size under 30K, 150 by 150 pixel image size. All of them proportioned correctly, not squished or stretched. all of them proportioned correctly. So that's the assignment. Good luck. Enjoy the links about the other options that you have for the higher grade on this assignment. I challenge you to give me something really cool looking with the way that these are presented. Have fun.